that doesn't draw a clear distinction between peaceful protest and terrorism.
They released us, one by one in the middle of the night in somewhere we didn't know, and told us our bail conditions were that we weren't allowed to associate with each other.
They were then released onto the streets without money or mobile phones and told that if they spoke to each other, they would be rearrested.
But here we are doing stark, staring, simple, safe, peaceful, obvious protest, and bang, down comes this politically driven police boot.
I mean, to be honest, when I first got let out and realised that they'd taken my essays and everything, and realised that my house had been searched, my partner was freaked out, I was just like, I'm never doing anything like that again.
I really don't want her to do it again. I mean, I really, really don't want her to do it again, and I really, therefore, don't want her to have to do it again.
Would you do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Give it a year, though.
Yeah.
Give it a year.
This treatment, though worrying and sinister in some ways, is a long way from the terrible treatment that a lot of people are suffering throughout the world for taking political action. But we, I think, have to nevertheless see the small steps from where we have civil liberties to where we have none at all.
To protect the airline industry, Ellen and Rose were charged with conspiracy, which can attract a lengthy jail term.
And I rejoice that we live in a country where peaceful protest is a natural part of our democratic heritage.
But in Brighton, some local residents made the mistake of using that democratic heritage outside an American arms company.
We're the Brighton Hove Citizens Weapons Inspectors, and we've come to inspect Lido MBM's weapons of mass destruction.
It seemed foolish to be demonstrating in London to lobby a government that we already knew was completely committed to this agenda to go to war, when we had in our own backyard people who were manufacturing the very guidance systems that were being used to commit these atrocities.
We'd like to go and see what they're doing in the factory.
They manufacture circuit boards. Probably a lot of people work, they've never actually seen a bomb.
My daughter was already at the forefront of this issue, and therefore I became very aware of the importance of the demonstration locally.
I can make this a bit larger, Linda.
John Catt is an 82-year-old painter who served in the RAF during the Second World War. John and his daughter Linda regularly attend the protests outside the EDO weapons factory.
The company overreacted and said we will get an injunction, and this injunction would cover a large area. Initially, the area they wanted to cover was a public park. So if you were in a public park with an anti-arms trade badge on, you could be nicked for breaching the injunction. It applied to everyone.
Was this the injunction against the world?
It was an injunction against the world over public area.
It had the consequence that one of the people who'd been involved in the protests over a long period of time wouldn't have been able to actually go to his own home.
A man who became very prominent at protests later on, called Mark Lynch, was the person who Edo MBM employed to serve the injunctions.
Order number 1, served. Order number 2, served. Who are you, sir? It's not being served, it's just dropped. Order number 13, served.
He's littering!
Order number! He's already given me!
Are you an officer of the...
I saw you push that man. I saw you push that man. That's very naughty.
There is an injunction in force. The injunction says you must be on that side of the road. If you refuse to clear the road, then you are liable to be arrested for obstruction of the highway.
If you come off there for obstruction of the highway, you will be arrested. For obstruction of the highway. What do you think you're doing?
I went over to the other side of the road as usual and said to a police officer, "It's all right if I make some sketches." "Not today," he said. "You have to go over on the glass verge." And that was my first realisation that this was a different world now. And they went up and down twice, up and down the line of demonstrators, and on their return the second time, I didn't hear what the police officer was saying. He knew perfectly well I couldn't hear what he was saying because of the terrific row that we were making as demonstrators with all sorts of equipment, you know, hailers and so on. I eventually had my hands handcuffed from behind.
How's it feel to be a nice cop now? How's it feel to be a nice cop?
And shortly after that, my daughter accompanied me in the police van.
I saw this situation happening and instinctively ran to the aid of my father.
Did you get assaulted?
Yeah, the cue got touch your hand.
CC Baxwell, DV56.
In the white shirt there, holding over.
And I was arrested in the chaos and accused of assaulting a police officer.
This is the same officer. What are you doing? This is the same man that assaulted CC Baxwell earlier.
Chris and Linda were charged with assaulting a police officer.
"14 named defendants were on the injunction as being the people who were really alleged to be the main group behind this campaign of harassment against Edo MBM. Those people found themselves repeatedly arrested, done deliberately to blacken their names and to justify the enormous amount of money that had been spent on policing the demonstrations there, particularly in Chris's case, 9 times.
Sussex Police were talking with the company and with the lawyer about how they should proceed and how they should work to strengthen the injunction case and how they should, in effect, arrest to order. So that what they would do is when they applied for their injunction, they would say, look, we've had so many arrests here, X, Y, Z, 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 blah, 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 and here's the list of them. So they would then go out and do the shopping to make sure they had the arrest quota to put before the court to try and get the injunction.
To stop the protests?
To stop the protests.
The anti-stalking law that was used against the protesters was written by the lawyer Timothy Lawson-Crussenden, who also represented EDO and was responsible for the injunction strategy.
There were some very serious criminal charges that were brought against the protesters. They were sort of assaulting a police officer. I mean, that was serious stuff.
But that all got dropped away.
Why was that dropped?
I don't know. I think the protesters claimed it's because the police didn't want to disclose various documents.
We're asking for emails, communications, contact between Lawson-Cruttenden, Edo and Chief Inspector Cox.
Sussex Police didn't want evidence to come out in court about their collusion with Edo MBM and the extent of their involvement with the factory.
Well, that's what the protesters say, and they'll always say that, won't they? I mean, the position is that the police are pretty careful to act as referees.
They dropped 8 cases in one go.
Right, let me share you with that, which is the court order that the injunction now only applies to 5 named defendants.
Thank you very much.
Served.
Lovely.
Any comment? Any comment?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'd like to give you this. Avoidance of any doubts. The injunction, which you've been police for the last 11 months, now only applies to 5 named defendants.
I'm totally aware of that.
Okay.
I'm totally...
Served.
Excuse me.